Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is the founder of Spark Engine, Zeina Zeitouni. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Paul. Thank you.
How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
I know the listeners are going to be looking for or listening, to hear all the wonderful things you have to talk about. Before we actually dive into, your company, the entrepreneurship, and, all the stuff you've done in corporate America, could you just give us a little background on yourself, like where you're from originally, and, how did the schooling that you also went to as well?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Lebanon, in Beirut. My family moved around a lot when I was younger. We lived in Sao Paulo, Brazil for a little bit, and then made our way into Los Angeles, California. That's where I grew up. Went to UCLA for undergrad, studied sociology and international development. Really loved living in LA, but after being there for, the greater part of my 20s, I made the move out to Dubai, worked on some international development projects, in Afghanistan and Tanzania and various places while I was out there, and really, really loved that. And then came back and made my way to the East Coast, and I live in New York City now, and loving that. So trying both coasts and doing some traveling, but yeah, it's been a journey.
Wow. So all this traveling, out of all the places you've been to, could you just name one place that you feel like is like the ideal place to visit?
Ideal place to visit. It's hard because every place is so special for different reasons, right? So I think that if people can get a chance to go anywhere in Central Asia or the Middle East, I highly recommend it, just because it really shifts your perspective. It's really a different story from what you see every day on TV. So for people living in the States, I recommend go out to Dubai as a hub, and then travel around. Go to Lebanon. Go to Morocco, visit places in the region. They're really great. Yeah.
Now, being a world-class traveler, right? You've been exposed to various different cultures. Could you talk a little bit more about like just traveling out of where you are now, obviously New York, but like just traveling across the world? Like, how is it, being involved to be going into so many different cultures and seeing it firsthand?
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting for me, because I think the one thing that working in other cultures specifically, right? So I've worked in Brazil, I've worked in Tanzania, I've worked in Afghanistan and Kabul and Dubai, and just in Canada and Germany, in the UK. And what's very interesting and really that I take away as the biggest lesson is the focus on empathy, right? So there's something about just really building up your practical empathy skills and being able to go into these different situations, go into these different cultures, and put yourself in other people's shoes, right? See things through their lens, and it really, really has helped me navigate all those different places and cultures and worlds, but also learn so much, right? And grow and develop. And I feel like, I take that with me wherever I go, and continue to do that on a day-to-day, just focus on that practical empathy and see how things change.
Now, when you talk about being a world-class traveler, you talk about traveling, just being engulfing yourself in various different cultures, like how has that helped you in your career? Like you said, being involved in, the profession that you're in right now, being able to see the world in so many different places. And like you said, working in different areas and having different cultures affect the way you are working. How have you excelled in your career with it?
Yeah, so really good question, because as you were asking that, the first thing that came to mind, I'm like, those practical empathy skills, they really matter on a day-to-day basis. And I'm in the business of innovation, right? So I help companies, look at things from different perspectives, right? That's the key to innovation, is shifting your lens and shifting your perspective and trying on different ways of seeing an existing problem, looking for new opportunities and problems. And the best way to do that is to get really good at, removing yourself from your own your own biases or your own systems of thinking, or, taking on new mental models, right? And so I think traveling and having to adapt or shift, or even just, get really, just get really better at understanding things from other people's perspective has helped me, develop innovation frameworks, think about problems differently, and, really approach things from different perspectives, which is really key to what I do.
Mm-hmm. With that being said, could we talk a little bit more about, Spark Engine? Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about the background and how you started off of it, developing it from the ground up. How is that going for you?
Yeah, so Spark Engine is a collaborative effort, actually. I work with a partner who I met during my time at Capital One. I was a product manager for many years at Capital One, and my partner Valerio had this, idea to write a book, right? So he wrote a book called The Spark Engine many years ago, and I reached out to Valerio. I'm like, Valerio, I really love this concept. This can turn into something powerful. I have all these ideas around innovation frameworks and driving impact and building products that actually solve meaningful problems. And, he embraced the concept and said, yeah, I think that this actually makes a lot of sense. He is a very well-trained innovation trainer himself, product manager for many years. And I am a design strategist and product manager as well. So we partnered up and launched Spark Engine together. And it really came out of, recognizing, that the vision for the book, or the idea for the book, can turn into a real company. And, and that's where we are today.
Okay. Now, you mentioned in there briefly, you mentioned about working at Capital One. How was that experience? I mean, Capital One is worldwide. How was that experience?
That was great. So Capital One, when I worked there, I had worked in various fintech startups, which is financial technology. And through network and connection, someone at Capital One reached out and said, hey, you presented on a trading platform and we're interested in hiring new product managers. You want to come over and join our team? And, at the time, I didn't know what a product manager was, to be honest. And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds great, And so I went and I did a lot of research and I looked it up and, went through a grueling 8-hour interview process and ended up getting hired there as a product manager on an innovation team, and really worked on developing new products within the company. And one thing I would say about Capital One as a company is they were really innovative and ahead of their time, right? They focused a lot on human-centered design and working with, expert designers and service designers in the field to really change how we do banking in general, right? How to change people's relationship with money, to do things like that. So it was really fun to be a part of that. I learned a lot. I met amazing people like Valerio, who I work with today, and I continue to network and work with people at Capital One. So, a great place to sort of develop your skills and try new things and be around really innovative thinkers.
Now, something that I read within the bio of you, and which I want to talk a little bit more about, is this presentation that you gave at Columbia University, right? I know you obviously were working on that presentation for some time. Could you express exactly what that presentation was about?
Yeah, that was a while ago. But yeah, that was during my time at Capital One. I worked at the commercial bank for a little while, and we partnered up with Columbia to do a seminar series. And, it was industry partnering with academia to present on things we were doing with data science specifically. And so the project, or this seminar that we did, was around how data science and design thinking can come together to really solve problems within commercial banking. And so it was unique in that we brought, the science and the art together and presented how, when working together and kind of approaching problems that, on the outset, they seem like very, how should I say, mathematical problems tend to actually be very human problems. And so when you combine the two, right, the best of the science and the art and the human and the data, you really could solve problems in interesting ways. And so that's what that talk was about. And I take that with me, on a daily, because I work with data scientists all the time, and I'm very passionate, and I push this concept of really being human focused in building products and thinking about the human implications and the human needs around everything we do, because that's where innovation comes from. So it's really cool to see places embracing that as well, right? Taking the science and the art together.
I'm assuming that presentation was a large group of people.
Yeah, it was students in Columbia's data science program. So it was a good group of people. They asked really great questions. It was great.
Now, being a part of several different companies and traveling all around the world, could you explain or talk a little bit more about diversity? Like, how is diversity in the environments that you worked in from corporate America?
So that's an interesting question. So I know there is a desire and a focus on diversity right now that I have just never seen before, which I think is important, and people are having the right conversations. Unfortunately, I think most places where I've worked, I would say, especially in the technology space, I would not call them diverse. And I think, saying that is important, seeing it is important, because these are the things that need to change, right? People building products need to represent the people they're building products for. So when you don't have diversity in your team, when you're trying to innovate, you're not going to innovate effectively. And over again, it's been proven from so many studies that the more diverse a team is, the more diverse backgrounds they bring to the table, the more innovative your company is going to be. So, working abroad, it's also interesting because, maybe in the Middle East, I can. You're working with different groups of people, but I tend to be the only woman, and in certain situations, which, and especially in technology or in the finance space, which has its own challenges as well. And so, I've seen things change. I've seen, people really being mindful, people from different backgrounds starting their own companies and really pushing forward in that way, which is amazing. But definitely an uphill battle remains.
Now, you mentioned the word challenges. Could you speak a little bit more about, obviously, I'm assuming, at some point in time, from coming from the Middle East, being a woman, climbing up that corporate ladder, did you face any challenges, like any direct challenges? Is it one you could speak on?
Yeah, it's funny because I'll actually say, aside from the corporate world, I'll maybe provide an interesting story. So I worked at a startup for many years in California. I was actually one of the early founding team. And we were giving a presentation to a group in Silicon Valley for funding. And I remember, being there, I was the only woman in the room presenting and, talking about the company, talking about our product. And it was really great. It was a Sand Hill Road room full of maybe 25 investors and all male. And, at the end of the presentation, people mingle and they talk, right? At the end of it, everyone was talking. And I started putting things away, right? There was some water and some food and stuff. And I started cleaning up the room or doing something like that. This was, 12 years ago. It was a really long time ago. And one of the guys, he was, I think at the time, an interim CTO at Yahoo. So he was a influential person in the tech community. He called me over. He's like, you should, come over here and talk to us. Why are you putting things away? And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, yeah, what am I doing? And there's something about, there are challenges that come from us internalizing certain roles. And that to me was such a turning point. I didn't even realize that I was excluding myself in a way, And so that stuck with me. And then there have been situations where I felt very excluded, right? There were, people going out for drinks and I just felt like, oh, I'm, I don't know if that's like appropriate in the Middle East to go out with a bunch of men for a drink to, things like that. So you have to think about things that you may not in other context. And so, to me, that was an interesting thing that like stuck with me throughout of like, yes, there are challenges that I don't know if we place on ourselves because of certain societies and systems, but then there are also the challenges that are systemic within the companies that we work in. And, I can talk about those all day long. You probably don't, I don't know, you probably hear that all the time.
Now, how are you maintaining, how do you stay positive in a time like that? Being the only woman in a room, being able to give these speeches and have a large group of people, and then, just that experience of you just, excluding yourself, what you were just, it was something that it came second nature to you, like, oh, let me just do this. And, it turned into an eye-opening experience, how do you stay positive? Like, where do you find that motivation?
My motivation comes from ideas. So I've always been obsessed with launching new things, trying new things, working in companies that are, experimenting with new ideas. And so for me, motivation is less searching for external motivations, but more of like, hey, there are ideas out there that I could be a part of, and I'm good at this, so I'm going to let that be the driver. So I think that's what it is. What motivates me is like the opportunity to do new things and continuing to pursue that.
And what is something that you're doing now currently, a project that you're working on directly?
That I can talk about.
You got a lot of things in the bag. Is there anything directly that you're working on? Because you said you strive off of new ideas and projects. Is there something that you're working on that you could share?
Yeah. So actually, with Spark Engine, we are building out a new program for impact innovation, and possibly partnering up with some nonprofits and people, and who want to innovate within. But measure things that are not just, there's this concept of like shareholder value versus stakeholder value, and we take a very stakeholder value approach. So we're designing a program really focused on impact innovation, and that's something I've always been really interested and curious about, and really hoping to teach people or develop frameworks that help people use impact metrics to drive their product development, which, bringing in social metrics, environmental metrics, governance metrics into the product development process versus it being like an oversight or something, or not an oversight, like something you think about later and an afterthought. And so that's something that's exciting that we're working on right now.
Now, you mentioned that when you went to school, how did you get into innovation? Was it with your family? Did somebody in your family do it before? Or was it something that you just fell in love with over time?
Yeah, totally by accident. Again, I've always been very interested in launching new ideas. In high school, I started various organizations and clubs that are still going today. Same with college. So I've always had this, desire to create something new. And so after college, I worked at a development agency for a little while, and then I moved and worked at a online e-commerce company. And from there got into the digital world and the digital innovation space. But no, it wasn't something I studied or did. It just sort of evolved from the various roles I took that were, adjacent or that were within the innovation space, but did not really have that label, if you will. Just like I, was working, technically doing the things a product manager or product innovation manager does, but without the label in previous jobs. And then, having done that, I was presented with the opportunity to actually do the role with the label. And then I'm like, oh, that's what this is called. And I took that. And then over time, that's sort of how I've come across and sort of ended up in this field was, by experimenting with ideas, trying new things, and, starting companies with people and things like that.
And how does your family feel about all the things that you've been doing, from your career to your entrepreneurship to your business? How is that relationship?
That's a good question. I think now I would say they're very proud. At the very beginning, no one really understood what I did. So when my mom talked about, when her friends would ask her, so what does your daughter do? Oh, I think she works at a bank. I don't know, so it's always like different. And, again, it's mental models, right? This is not a space or an area that my parents grew up, doing or working within. So for them, describing what I do is very difficult. So now she just says I'm a consultant. That's the that's the equivalent. But yeah, I would say now they're very proud. When you're younger and from like a Middle Eastern country, especially coming in as an immigrant, your parents want you to be a doctor or a lawyer. Like that's those are the jobs that or an engineer. So I guess you have the three, right? And so when you deviate,
you got three choices. That's it. You can't do anything else.
those are the secure jobs. So when I told them I'm studying international development and sociology, like what are you going to do with that? And then every job I took from there is like, what is that? What are you doing? And so I think it's fine. I've become comfortable with the confusion that people have. So it's I'm comfortable with uncertainty and trying new things. Some people, that's
that is true.
Yeah.
And over time, you found your voice. You know what I mean? It's something, you found your purpose, you found your passion, and you've obviously been working in that direction. And it's always hard to express to people, who don't understand, about your profession. And, especially if you have a culture where you grow up in and they're like, you know what, this is the common denominator. You're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to work in IT or something along. You're going to follow in your parents' footsteps, but you just taking that that role upon yourself and saying, you know what, I want to do this. And you've been doing a phenomenal job, and obviously you are setting the tone for a lot of individuals that are going to come after you. When we talk about a voice, right? When did you realize that you had a voice? And how did you utilize it for something that you cared about?
Yeah, it's interesting because it comes and goes, right? I think if I think about like high school and college, I was very, very interested in, like I said, starting organizations and then running for certain offices or certain positions and in groups and realizing, I can actually do this, and the actions I take have an impact, and that's cool. So I don't know if I was conscious of it, but I was aware that if you try to create something and it works, and that's a voice, right? You've helped people do things better that they weren't doing before, or whatever the case may be. And that's been up and down, though. I think that I tell people, like, I don't like the question, like, what are you passionate about? I like, what are you curious about? Because that's going to you to go do something right different, or go to try something new and not fear failure. Because when you're curious, that's going to drive you, right? Curiosity drives people to do interesting things. And I think people struggle, and that's why when you ask them what they're passionate about, they're like, everyone should have this passion, and I don't know if that's true. I think we all have curiosity, and that may lead to discovering a passion, or that may lead to another another idea or another curiosity. But I think that's really critical and super interesting. So I think I've always had a voice. At points I felt defeated, or I've had companies fail, or if I worked with, in situations or I've taken a job that I really didn't like, where then I just kind of shut down. And in those situations, you feel like you don't really have a voice because you don't have that drive or that curiosity or that, desire to do better, to do more. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did it. I like the way you thought about it. Like you said about the curiosity. I think that's a different way a different approach of thinking about it. Something that when you said it, I was like, wait, hold up. I think she's kind of right on that. You said like curiosity does make individuals drive, like to find that purpose, to find that passion. Like, I'm a little curious. Let's go and follow. Let's go here. Let's visit this place. And, it starts to lead into something else. And I definitely hear you on that. It's a different way of thinking. So thank you for sharing that. I know the listeners do that as well.
Yeah, there's an unfolding that takes place, right, when you're curious, and seeing that happen, I think it's really powerful and interesting.
Now, to kind of go back over that corporate America, I know from traveling, from all your experiences, like what was like one of the biggest challenges that you face, by working in corporate America?
I'll be candid here. The toughest thing about corporate America is navigating the politics of corporate America. I think so much time is wasted and so much miscommunication and misunderstanding is happening because people in these large groups naturally want to compete, right? And people want to stand out from each other. And I know that companies are trying to instill these collaborative practices and pushing for that because that is really what drives innovation. However, most corporations are set up for competition, and nothing good comes from that because you have people who are now playing politics to, get ahead, and that really is not conducive to the type of environment that I think really creative people, really maybe more introverted people, like certain people really can thrive and grow in. So then you end up with homogenous personalities at the top of these corporations. And that's very challenging because they see the world in a very in the same way, and that doesn't help individuals who may be different or who approach problems differently than they do. And so you don't get things like you don't get the diversity, you don't get the innovation, you don't get the creativity moving up to the top of of corporate structures because of the way they're set up for so much competition within people. And I think that needs to change towards collaboration.
Now, but I know we talked about the Spark engine and the whole like breakdown and how it all came about. Where do you see you guys in 5 years? Like what's the big picture?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do at Spark Engine is provide 6 weeks of like an incubator like coaching program. So we help people develop their own ideas. So they come into our program and they do the instructional, very interactive, experiential learning for 3 days. But then after the 3 days, it's 6 weeks of developing their own idea, right? Something they're working on, or it could be something they're working on it through their company or work, and they want to build. So we help people build something. So I want to see us doing that at scale and doing that with our mission of solving meaningful problems and focusing on impact, right? And so I think I'd love to see this impact innovation model in integrated into the Spark Engine program, and I'd love to see individuals in hundreds and thousands coming through the program and actually working on their ideas that are really centered around driving change and solving meaningful problems. So that's where I see it. I think there are many ways to get there, and we're experimenting and there's trying different things to really get us there. But that's the vision I have.
Well, congratulations on that. And obviously, I'm looking forward. I know the whole Zaka community as well too. I'm looking forward to seeing how Spark Engine continues on over the many years. What you have going on is amazing, and it's obviously it gives people a reason to shoot for and actually push on actually developing something. Sometimes people they have these wonderful ideas, but just don't know how to start it. They have ideas and they're like, where do I go? Who do I talk to? And obviously you could waste several hours looking online trying to research something. But when you have, a company like yourself that has a track record of developing and helping people understand how the process goes from start to finish, it does alleviate a lot of that stress off of someone, you know? So kudos to you on that. Is there anything before we conclude on our interview for today? Wonderful job of first off, again, expressing a lot of these gems that are going to help out a lot of the listeners. Is there anything you want to express to the listeners, for the Zaka community, something you would encourage for anyone that's definitely looking to get into innovation? Is there something that you want to kind of help kind of let them know?
Yeah, so thank you, first of all, Zaka. What you guys are doing is amazing, and I'm super excited to sort of continue following your progress. But what I do say, and I say this all the time to people I work with and people I mentor, is stay really curious. I mean, the best things in life and the things that really drive success are around asking the right questions. So I would really encourage people to, really develop their practical empathy skills, really develop their curiosity, and learn to ask really good questions, because that is, that's the superpower of the future. Answers are everywhere. You can go online and learn anything, like you said, but asking the right questions and relating to people, connecting on emotional level with people is really going to be the superpower of the future. So that would be my advice.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. To the listeners again, if you want to hear more stories like Zeina's, check out, us on ZakaConnect.com, or follow our feed Zaka wherever you listen to your podcast. Again, we just want to thank you again for joining us on the show today. Greatly appreciate all the things that you have shared with our listeners. And again, we look forward to seeing a lot of great things coming from Spark Engine and the many other projects and companies you will be developing in the many years.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thanks.
If you want to hear more about inspirational stories like Zeina, please check us out online at ZakaConnect.com. Follow us on our social at Zaka Connect, or follow our feed Zaka wherever you listen to your podcast.